Story 1. She was my college roommate and got me my first job at a bookstore. After discovering that her family sucks, my mom adopted her. Now she lives with her husband and in-laws and has 3 kids who call me auntie and my mom grandma. She still rocks dyed hair, tattoos, and combat boots, but says short skirts, complicated eye makeup, and fishnet tights are too much work. Story 2. Great skin and fewer wrinkles are a natural consequence of staying out of the sun. Story 3. She became a scientist. Her tattoos are covered by coveralls or black buffalo plaid button-downs. She stopped dyeing her hair in favor of cutting it short and wearing black beanies. She constantly plays dark house and goth rock. She remains misanthropic but has been living with a boyfriend who is like a golden retriever for nearly a decade. He does not understand it but adores her. She likes gardening. Story 4. It is me. I was the goth kid in my class. I am still a goth kid, but now I have a mortgage and a corporate job. I am the woman with the tattoos and piercings who wears black on our floor. In my yearbook, I was voted biggest nerd and most likely to start a rock band. The rock band did not happen, but I am still a nerd. Story 5. One of my favorite things to see in public is goth parents. Both dressed in black finery and wearing makeup, they walk with a child in purple and pink. It gives off a raised by wolves vibe that I like to see. Story 6. Some of them became librarians. Apparently, goths who remain goth are known for aging well. I have heard the same about people who are active in other music subcultures such as heavy metal or death metal. Retaining a strong interest in something and having a peer group that is into the same thing as you are 2 keys to good mental health. Story 7. I am a goth, and I became a drug addict. I am currently in rehab. Story 8. I ran into him 5 to 10 years after high school at a late-night fundraiser. I bought him a drink to catch up, and it turned out that his wacky hair had led him into a very competitive hair salon apprenticeship. He said things were going great and he was making a lot of money, doing what he loved until he fell in with the wrong crowd after work. They used their pay to buy drugs, and he said he left that life after a woman went crazy and stabbed him. I must have looked skeptical, because he pulled up his shirt and his stomach was covered with extensive scars. The last I heard, he was traveling in Asia trying to find himself. I hope he does. He was always a very nice guy. Story 9. I am doing pretty well. I am 52. I work in information technology at a public library and wear black jeans and a shirt for the band The Cure to work every day. I still go to live shows every few weeks. Story 10. I was the goth and punk kid and I admit to being a handful. I am almost 50 now and still dress in black. I have a single collared shirt that has Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on it. I am the executive advisor for cybersecurity at a company in the Fortune 50. Story 11. He left the United States of America, traveled for a while, and became a medical doctor in Sweden. Story 12. She got a good job in information technology and is getting married tomorrow. Story 13. One is a pilot for Delta Airlines. Another works for a law firm as a paralegal. I lost touch with the third person. As an aside, I follow a few goth musicians from Generation X on Twitch who play much of the great early music from the 1980s and also introduce me to excellent music being made today. Story 14. I was the goth kid. I became a forensic psychiatric nurse and have cut as many ties as possible with the place I grew up in, so I doubt any of them know how I ended up. Story 15. I was the goth kid in my class and I am still kind of goth. I have not been a child for a very long time. Story 16. I was and still am the goth kid. I became an electrician. Story 17. I love all the goth kids who grew up to be my teacher colleagues. Story 18. I am still here, but on the outside I mostly pass as a regular middle-aged person. Story 19. I am a web developer with 3 biological children, 2 stepchildren, 1 child-in-law, 1 grandchild, 6 cats, 3 dogs, and an indeterminate number of squirrels and raccoons that inhabit the backyard. I live in the suburbs with my husband, stepson, and mother-in-law. My husband is semi-retired and cares for his mother, who has dementia. I still listen to Typo Negative. Story 20. The goth kids? We had a whole herd of them. As with any other group from school, they did different things. They are artists, teachers, customer service agents, lawyers, and so on. 2 of them died in a car crash during our senior year. Many are still goth. A couple moved into rockabilly, and 1 or 2 dress pretty conventionally now. I was always merely goth adjacent, but I still enjoy wearing black lipstick. Most of my children are continuing the aesthetic now. Story 21. I grew up and started my own production business. I wear black every day, drive black cars, and have an amazing family. You would never guess I was seen as a freak in high school. Story 22. Hi. I was once a goth kid. People called me emo back then. I now identify as mom goth and own multiple businesses. I am a chef, studying to be a dietitian, and I own a cafe that focuses on healthier eating and caters to alternative diets. I still wear black clothes and dark makeup. I am a Celtic pagan and I still listen to metal and many other kinds of music. I love to knit, make jewelry, and craft. I keep a large apothecary of herbs and oils at home that I use for lotions, salves, and teas. Our family's favorite holidays are Samhain and Yule. We make simmer pots and have moon and witchy decor, with Halloween decorations up year-round inside the house. My partner and I are gamers and play games with our child. Our firstborn loves fairies, light purple, and dressing up as a princess. I am pregnant with our second child. We are building our lives and trying to live our best while staying true to who we are. Story 23. After graduation, he moved to San Francisco and became a beat poet. Story 24. Hi. I am an office manager going back to school to become a therapist. I just picked up a Susie album I did not have at a record convention. Story 25. I am now a magnetic resonance imaging technician at a pediatric hospital, and I am still goth outside of work. Story 26. Someone played the band Agnetha Falskog, Bjorn Ulvaeus, Benny Andersson, and Annie Frid Lyngstad over the school intercom and they burst into flames. Story 27. He is transgender now, has his own place, and works at a record pressing plant. He is also me. Story 28. I am a pediatrician who wears a lot of eyeliner and a septum ring. I am married to the grunge and emo kid from another high school in another state. We met in college and are planning to have a whole bunch of unhappy babies. We have 3 cats. They are not goth. Story 29. I am the goth kid who became a librarian and suffered burnout. I have not been able to work since then, nearing 3 years. Story 30. She married into wealth, inherited a large fortune from her parents, became a crunchy stay-at-home mom in the wealthiest neighborhood in our city, and posts weekly judgmental Facebook rants about various topics. Story 31. I am a barista and have a culinary degree. I still wear mostly black, but I do not wear makeup. Story 32. I own a witchcraft shop. I am not really goth anymore. I am more rockabilly now, but I used to be the token spooky goth kid. Story 33. She's still going goth, or whatever the proper term is. I'm not sure how much skin isn't covered by tattoos. We weren't that close, but I'm guessing it's not much. Story 34. Our school was not huge. This was from 2000 to 2004. We tended to categorize anyone who was alternative into a group I called the freaks. Punks, metalheads, goths, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and others. If you were not a mainstream student, you were welcome in the freaks. Most went on to have normal lives. A few became creative professionals in fields like design, and maybe 1 or 2 made a living from art. Most had toned down their goth style but remained clearly alternative. There were a couple of deaths in the scene, as in any scene, often related to drugs and similar problems. Story 35. The one I grew up with, whose whereabouts I know, is a very successful funeral director. He studied mortuary science, obtained all his licenses, and lovingly guides families through the tough, raw, and vulnerable stages of losing a loved one and saying goodbye. His ears are still gauged, but he looks polished and professional in a 3-piece suit during services. Story 36. I was arguably that goth kid. I had never been a goth, but to my classmates there was little difference. I was the only metalhead at school, the only boy with long hair and alternative clothing. I now teach game development to troubled and disadvantaged children. Story 37. It was me. I became a psychiatrist. I still wear a lot of black and made my first battle jacket last year. The other one became a teacher, then a behavior specialist. We both married and each have 2 children. We recently reconnected. Story 38. She moved out of our small town and into the big city. She earned a Master of Arts in Museum Studies in London, then returned for a second Master of Arts in Library and Information Science. She works full-time and has 3 dogs and 100 tattoos. She is me. Story 39. They will never know. Once I went my own way and became successful, I cut all of them out and went dark. Story 40. I was goth in high school. I am a mother and a social worker. I taught there for a while before I switched careers. Still goth. Story 41. She is now selling pictures for money. Don't ask how I know this information. Story 42. Well, I work at a funeral home now. It is really funny because everyone joked about it, and now it has finally come true. Story 43. He is sitting on my couch, scrolling Reddit on my phone. That would be me. After about 5 years, ages 13 to 18, of wearing all black virtually every day, I quit rather abruptly, and I remember precisely when I made that decision. At my college orientation weekend before my freshman year, I was walking across campus when, for some reason, I stopped and looked down at my clothes. I was wearing a black t-shirt with vampire, the masquerade artwork from the live-action role-playing game, not the video game, cut-off shorts that covered my knees, and Doc Martens with 14 eyelets that left about 2 to 3 inches of exposed skin between them. And my shorts. I suddenly realized that I was still dressed essentially the same as I had been at 13 or 14 and felt silly looking like that at college. Because most of what I owned was black, my wardrobe still had a lot of black in it, but I never wore shorts to class during my freshman year and I avoided pairing black shirts with black pants. It did not take long to look like a generic undergraduate. I earned degrees in philosophy and English literature and went on to law school. I have practiced law for 17 years, the last 13 of which I have mostly spent serving as a Chapter 7 bankruptcy trustee. My goth kid past is not usually apparent in my day-to-day life, but some nights I go out and joyride in my black Morris garages convertible with the top down, listening to Joy Division. Story 44. One became an artist, married a man 15 years older than her, had a baby, and then they divorced. Another became an art teacher at our school, immediately began a relationship with the popular English teacher, and caused a lot of drama that led the English teacher to transfer to another school. Story 45. I was an emo or goth girl who worked in graphic design for a while, then moved into administration working for the government in the health sector. I still have stretched ears, piercings, and many tattoos. Story 46. I have one hardcore goth friend who completed her Doctor of Philosophy in Biology and is now a research laboratory manager. Story 47. I was the goth kid in my class and I am still goth in my 30s. I have a boring corporate job and a lot of black button-up shirts and blouses, so I do not seem any less goth at the office. I am also married and have a toddler who thinks my graveyard candles are pretty. Story 48. I'm a professor now. Another friend is an editor for Politico in Europe, and another runs a company in Mexico. Story 49. One became opposed to vaccines and a Make America Great Again supporter. The rest kind of stayed goth or adjacent. Story 50. I am a human resources manager. I still wear black and am considered scary by people who have gotten to know me. That is their first impression. The only difference now is that I am happy. Story 51. I became a motion graphics designer. I learned how to use all the colors in school. Story 52. Hi, it is me. I became an academic. There are many of us in my field. Story 53. I can speak for myself. I was in high school a bit before goth became a thing, but I was progressive, think Robert Smith, The Cult, Echo, and the Bunnymen, and I was way into that scene circa 1991 to 1995. Huge hair, all black, reciting Rimbaud, Lord Byron, Shelley by heart, generally too cool for school. I was kind of insufferable. Around my first year in college, I started dressing normally and played a lot of sports on a scholarship. I just did not have time to keep up the whole look and all the trappings between school, work, and so on. I ended up studying very hard, earning a few postgraduate degrees, and have had a very successful career in financial technology. I still love The Cure. Story 54. We did not have a goth, just a guy with long hair, heavy metal shirts and chains. I am an electrician now. Story 55. She unfortunately died last year from an overdose. I love you and miss you, Kimmy. Story 56. I was the goth kid in my school. I was a tattoo artist for many years, then an analytical chemist for 8 years. I then became disabled and transitioned. Now I am poor but happy. Life is fucking weird. Story 57. She murdered her mother and grandparents, dismembered them, and buried them in concrete in her grandparents' basement. She stole all their cash and fled to Las Vegas before being apprehended and spending many years in prison. Story 58. He worked for a very popular metal band and toured the world with them. He now runs his own merchandise company. Story 59. He got into drugs, eventually heroin. He woke up in a gutter one morning and realized that if he did not make major changes, he would wake up dead in a gutter. He knew he had an arrest warrant, so he walked into the local police station and turned himself in. At his arraignment, he asked the judge to place him in a locked rehabilitation program. He got clean, stayed clean, served his time, and now works as a drug and alcohol counselor for at-risk youth. Story 60. I was the goth kid, laughing out loud. I almost joined the army, but my husband signed up for the Navy. We got married and moved across the country. I went into medical work but had to pause after another move and my second pregnancy. I am the goth punk mom volunteer at my children's elementary school. I make friends with the kids and provide backup for teachers in classrooms and hallways, giving firm reminders. I know you do not like this, but we still have to be good. We have to be nice. And, excuse me. No, sir or ma'am. We do not do that. I volunteer for events and am friends with many staff members. Mainly because he is active duty and deployable, I handle everyone's schedule until his job becomes more stable and I can go back to work. I got a mohawk and dyed it purple at age 30. I do not know. My 4th grader is a punk princess now, but she is very smart and well loved at school. We have a new teacher who wears trip pants, Converse shoes, casual t-shirts, and her beautiful hip-length box braids. She teaches 1st grade or kindergarten, and I love it. I wish I had kept my trip pants. Story 61. Nothing exciting. I ended up becoming a forklift driver. I'm off today and replying to this Reddit post. Story 62. I do not know. The last time I saw her, 3 months after graduation, she was involved with a man old enough to be her father. Story 63. I do not think I knew any certified goths growing up, but I knew a scene kid who liked the music and dyed her hair black. She has long since grown out of that phase and seems to be doing well. She works as a nurse, has a dog, and is married. Story 64. There were 2 of us. She stayed in our hometown in Florida and became a mom with multiple health issues. I became a semi-unemployable goober in New York City. We are both still goth, though. Story 65. I used to be the goth kid. I still listen to the same music I did back then. I moved from wearing all black to an autumn palette, but I still wear combat boots. I work at a small pharmaceutical company in the medical department. Maybe I sold out, but I like to think the work I do helps others so it balances out. Story 66. I was the goth kid. My style has mellowed, but I am still somewhat alternative. After high school, I worked for a couple of years and decided to go back to school at age 23. I am currently a senior working toward my Bachelor of Arts with a specialization in studio. There is a decent film industry where I live, and I hope to get a job designing sets or doing photography. I am still figuring out my plans after school. Story 67. He is married, has 3 cats, recently moved into his first house, and is getting coffee at Bigby. Story 68. He joined the military. They had him undergo surgery to sew up his earlobes from his gauges, buzz his hair, and remove his other piercings. He never really talked about missing it. After the military, he did not return to that style, but every so often I still see little glimpses peeking through. Story 69. I moved to San Francisco with all of the other misfit toys. Story 70. He became a methamphetamine addict who lost everything. I hope you are doing better, Zach. Story 71. We remained friends for decades. He became addicted to heroin and was homeless. He always called or emailed me to say that he was okay. Last year I received a call, but it was not from him. He had relapsed after being clean for a couple of years and overdosed. Rest in peace, Derek. Story 72. She enlisted in the Air Force after graduation and is now a lieutenant colonel. She is married, and her children are also now in the armed forces. She is a well-rounded and respected leader and seems genuinely happy. Story 73. Hi. I'm a goth kid all grown up at 48 years old. I'm a bartender with no children and the best partner I could ever ask for. Story 74. That is me. I have a master's degree in occupational therapy. I am a licensed practitioner. Story 75. It is me, the goth kid. I am doing pretty well. I got married in October. Story 76. He started and sold the Geek Squad. He is very wealthy, and I could not be prouder to have known him. He endured a lot of mistreatment as a teenager, and his success feels like karmic justice. Story 77. Became the chief executive officer. Story 78. We grew up and dressed more conventionally, although we were covered in tattoos and had gauged ears. I stopped wearing all black when I got a white husky. I have a wife and children. We all listened to a lot of music from 20 years ago. I would say most goth kids have a similar story. Story 79. Our class was small, only 50 students. 3 classmates who were goth died by suicide or overdose in the past few years. I am 30. It is unfortunate and difficult to see so many members of my class lost. Story 80. He became the kind, honest, benevolent ruler of Russia. In other words, he did not exist then or now. Story 81. I am very good friends with her and she is a grandmother now. For context, I was considered the preppy kid growing up. Story 82. I am the goth kid. To be honest, I never grew out of it. I graduated from university in communication and am now studying to become a veterinarian. Much has happened in my life, but I still like myself. Story 83. It was me. I didn't kill myself. Yay. I ran away from home, lived on the streets in a mid-sized city, had a baby, and joined the Amish for more than 6 years. Seriously baptized, horse and buggy, no electricity, the whole thing. I left the Amish, joined a cult, accepted an arranged marriage, had 7 babies in 10 years, and left the cult. I finally settled down on my own property with my amazing family and found out I am autistic as hell. I am not really goth anymore, but I definitely have my own vibe that I am now unashamed of. I decorate my home with skulls and preserved found dead animals. And I still wear only silver jewelry and costume-style makeup. Story 84. I was the goth kid. I am now an accountant. I still dress mainly in black and listen to heavy metal. I now rock an undercut and a big beard. Story 85. I am 31 years old. I still have silver hair with a black streak. I have more tattoos, but I removed most of my piercings. I am a professional investigator, and I have a wonderful, albeit non-goth, family. Story 86. She earned an art degree and became a recreational therapist in the prison system. Story 87. I was the goth kid in my class in the 1980s in the United Kingdom. I slid into dance music via Grebo and partied hard through the 1990s. Eventually, I resigned myself to the fact that I needed to work for a living. Now I make decent money in information strategy for a leading technology firm and live in a penthouse apartment on a marina on the Sunshine Coast in Australia. I still remember my goth days fondly. I have never had as much fun since. Story 88. I am a development and operations engineer who spends an uncomfortable amount of time explaining things in simple terms to corporate employees. Story 89. She grew up to become me. She is a huge metalhead and still a part-time goth. Story 90. The one we lovingly called Morticia is now a stay-at-home mother of 3 beautiful children and apparently happy as a clam. Story 91. I am good. I am 42 now. I still wear only black. I just got a black shirt the other day with a skull on it that says it gets worse before it gets worse. I am happy with my work and my marriage, and I am feeling good these days. I have no children and 2 cats. I still listen to Skinny Puppy regularly. Story 92. She is me. She lives a peaceful, semi-reclusive life surrounded by art and animals in a beautiful, mature goth den. Story 93. One joined the military after September 11, 2001, and was killed in Afghanistan. I have no idea about the other. My inner goth, or more accurately emo, emerged in college because I was not allowed to wear the aesthetic when I lived at home. I incorporate elements of it into my daily wear. I am a teacher. Story 94. I became a creative director, cinematographer, and photographer. Story 95. He became a politician and a jewelry designer. He also makes Celtic and Norse leatherwork. He does three-dimensional printing and builds small devices using Arduino and Raspberry Pi. Right now he is reading Reddit. Story 96. I grew up and am a senior citizen, but in my defense we were not goth back then, just freaks. Story 97. I became a school counselor and help all children but have a special soft spot for the weirdos like me. Story 98. I was one of the goth kids. I dress pretty normally now. I still have piercings and tattoos, but my hair started to recede and thin, so I had to shave it. On the rare occasions my wife and I go to a gig, we both dress up like we used to, which makes us feel young again. Story 99. I work in information technology now and intentionally dress like a nerd for my corporate job. I imagine that the pentagrams, bones, and spikes will not go over well with the church and finance clients I frequently meet with. Story 100. I retired early in my mid-30s from finance and opened a bar. Story 101. He tried to commit suicide with a .22 caliber pistol. The shot only bounced around in his mouth, and now he has a glass eye. Story 102. She is a farmer and pastry cook at a trendy bakery. She usually wears band t-shirts and jeans, and on her days off she wears colorful dresses. That's me. I still occasionally wear collars with flowery dresses. I stopped wearing black lipstick a few years ago. Story 103. I am the goth kid from my class. Took a while to get on my feet. Now I am mostly happily married. I have a great, flexible work from home, six-figure tech career, a super cute but somewhat annoying dog, and the best ever 4.5-month-old baby. It is not all peaches and cream, though. I also take care of my miserable mother who lives with us and is the biggest source of stress in my life. We still rent our home. Nearly all of our family supports Donald Trump except us. I still have ridiculous student loan debt, struggle with negative self-talk, have no friends besides my husband, and I gained more weight during pregnancy than I imagined possible and have not been able to lose it yet. I am not living my dreams, but when I was a teenager I thought I would be dead by suicide by now, so I guess things are better than that. Edit. I am more natural now than I used to be, but I still wear mostly black, with spiky earrings and big boots. Story 104. I am the goth kid from my class, laughing out loud. I went to art school, got married, and now work in an office. I look exactly like what I think people would expect me to. I still dye my hair and have full sleeve tattoos and piercings. Story 105. He was a nice kid. When I returned to school later in life, I ran into him there. He was enrolled in an elevator mechanic program but has done well in the culinary field. He has been involved in recipe development at a couple of new local restaurants. Over the last few years, he appears to be in a happy relationship with a woman who has a child, and he seems to have a good relationship with the child. They enjoy gardening and growing marijuana, and he is very interested in making fermented hot sauces. Story 106. Hi, this is me. I moved to a larger city and work in human services. I currently work at a youth homeless shelter. I am still interested in all things weird. Story 107. Nothing really exciting happened. I finished school, became a doctor, and have been working for nearly 15 years. I have a wife who was and is still interested in anime and emo culture. She is now a lawyer. We also have a dog. Story 108. My wife's best friend was the goth kid. They are still good friends. She works as a clerk for a mechanic, has 3 pet spiders, and a daughter who loves princesses and the color pink. Story 109. That was me. Since college, I have led a very conventional life. My daughter carries on the tradition. Story 110. I used to be the goth kid. Now I am an artist who creates super colorful pop art with a dark edge. I also work in data privacy compliance for a major company. Story 111. I was the goth kid at my school. I grew up and became a registered psychiatric nurse. Yes, all my scrubs are black. Story 112. Hopefully he stopped being bullied. Sorry I wasn't a better friend, Casey. Story 113. We were friends in middle school but drifted apart. She later got an apprenticeship at the tattoo shop that my close friends own. Now we visit ghost towns and hunt for ghosts together. She is one of the funniest and kindest people I know. Story 114. She is currently working as an elementary teacher and has a 2-year-old daughter. She dresses like a normie for her job but frequently uploads selfies in her goth outfits. Story 115. She became a highly respected psychiatrist with a Doctor of Philosophy degree and several published books. She was married, had at least one child, and lived in a high-cost area. She no longer appeared to be goth. Story 116. After classical studies, I got a job working as a healthcare assistant in a hospital. I also became an aspiring artist, freelance photographer, and emerging writer and poet. I won some drawing and writing competitions and joined a project funded by the European Union, a photo contest aimed at preventing all forms of violence. My favorite genres are fantasy, followed by historical romance and dystopia. I have mild autistic traits, speak multiple languages, and love reading, listening to metal, rock, and symphonic music, binging films and television series, playing guitar, cooking, gardening, sewing, caring for animals, singing though I am terrible at it, and dancing though I look like a tree trunk. I am passionate about the paranormal, but no matter how much I learn, knowledge is never enough. I took the Mensa Intelligence Quotient test for fun and scored 145 or higher. I am planning to audition for one of Europe's top publishing companies as an audiobook narrator. Yes, unbelievable but true. That's me. I'll be goth until I die, I'm sure. Story 117. I am a successful bar manager with a lovely flat and a sporty boyfriend. I was the goth kid and I am still a goth. If you had told my 16-year-old self that I would settle down with a man who wears tracksuits and does not like rock music, I would have laughed. But here I am and I could not be happier. Story 118. The goth girls all became nurses. The goth guys all work in information technology. Story 119. The goth kid in my class is a truck driver and a heavy metal musician. Many goths are musicians or tattoo artists. Story 120. I stopped wearing all black. I'm still depressed and goth at heart. Story 121. I was the goth kid in my class. I got expelled for a year, fell behind, and cheated my way through the rest of high school, but thankfully found an interest in computers. I struggled after high school, did not jive with college, had a bad time with low-end jobs and bad bosses, and attempted suicide a few times. Eventually I cut my hair, cleaned up, and landed a decent computer-related contract gig because they only did a phone interview. I hopped from contract to contract, traveled a lot, and dropped out of college because I did not need it anymore and professors told me to leave instead of letting me take assignments while traveling. I moved out, gained a lot of varied experience quickly, and developed a strong desire to make money. I kind of ignored my social life for a while to focus on building a home lab, teaching myself more, and studying for various technical certifications. Paid off and I got into some cushy high-end consulting work, making more than anyone else I knew. I started to burn out and settled into coasting at work while focusing on rebuilding my social life. I got into the rave scene and then drugs and alcohol, lived recklessly, and did some sketchy things. I grew my hair back out, discovered that cross-dressing felt good, and then realized that maybe there was more to it than just the clothes feeling good. I came out as transgender, met a loving and supportive partner, started hormone replacement therapy, and cut back on the drugs and partying. Now I am 34 and we have been together for 5 years. It is still the best relationship either of us has ever been in and we have 2 lovely cats. Both of us are back to our goth roots, wearing whatever makes us happy and comfortable without caring what others think. Working full-time from home helps with that. I still struggle with mental health, but I have a good therapist now and I am not suicidal or living recklessly anymore. I am still holding down the cushy tech job, which is objectively great, but I really hate the big corporate culture because a small company I worked for was acquired by a global behemoth. I am coasting there, extracting as much money as I can for the least effort, and building a large nest egg. Either I save enough to quit and never work again, or they lay me off and I use the savings to carry me through the job search to hopefully find another small unicorn company that does not get acquired quickly. Compared to my peers from high school, who are also struggling with various issues but have less comfortable jobs and fewer resources to help, I am doing significantly better than anyone expected, myself included. Story 122. It's me. I'm still the goth kid, and I am about to receive a Bachelor of Arts next December. I have no idea what I want to do with my life afterward. Story 123. I grew up and still enjoy being spooky, but I have learned to express it in a less over-the-top way. Story 124. Doing mostly fine. I was that kid. Truly was a phase. Story 125. I'm still goth and doing all right. Thanks for asking. Story 126. I am a married, cute, pink-loving lesbian. Story 127. The one true goth was a girl who had been consistently committed to looking the part since middle school. She later became a chef with dreadlocks and now listens to reggae, laughing out loud. Story 128. She and her longtime high school sweetheart married. They adopted a son, and when he was just over 1 year old, a couple of weeks before the adoption was finalized, she had a stroke. She was only 30 and nearly died. It was touch and go for a while, but she is doing okay now. She still has the same dark hair and style as in high school. The adoption was finalized about 9 weeks after she left the hospital. She is a teacher, which is perfect because she always wanted to be one, even in high school. She started college but soon had to take a full-time job and never finished her degree. She decorated cakes. After the stroke and during recovery she had trouble decorating because of lingering weakness, so she decided to go back to school to pursue her dream. That happened about 2 years ago. She is 38 now, so it is inspiring that she finally got her dream job in her late 30s. Story 129. I thought it was a phase. He changed styles and lifestyles every few years. I met him as a goth, then he went glam and preppy. He also changed careers often. The last time I saw him, he had stopped working as a translator and started training to be a tour guide. I had the impression it wasn't his thing. He had abandoned several careers and seemed out of options. I ran into a mutual friend who told me he graduated in tourism, is doing well, and works as a tour guide at a major cemetery, which he loves. Apparently it wasn't a phase. Story 130. I was the goth kid, laughing out loud. Now I am an accountant at a major manufacturing company in Seattle. I was always a massive nerd and finished school 2 years early. I lived in Texas and moved as soon as possible, and now I live a successful life. I get to be a little mean and crunch numbers while listening to music and working by myself in my beautiful office with a view of downtown. I walk to concerts after work and live in a charming apartment with lots of trees and plants. I am well liked by everyone I work with, and we have a loose dress code, so I can wear band crew neck sweaters, black jeans, and Doc Martens. I had to stop dyeing my hair, but I still have some piercings. Story 131. She was my best friend and went through a rough patch when we were teenagers. Her family situation was terrible, and she was expelled from school, so she stayed with us for a while. She found out she was pregnant and decided to turn her life around to be a better parent than the one she had growing up. She worked very hard at low-paying jobs while attending night school, got a job as a medical assistant, bought a house, found a supportive partner, and now seems very happy. Her child is extremely smart, kind, brave, and delightfully quirky. So I would say she did a wonderful job as a mother even without a strong blueprint. Story 132. I was the goth kid in my school, which was rare in my country when I was in high school. I grew up, majored in English, and became a teacher. I no longer dress edgy except when I am with friends. I still listen to the music, but I cannot talk about it because of my job. I cannot dress the way I want or have tattoos. Being a teacher in Morocco is really limiting. I still go to local band shows when they are available. Story 133. She was my best friend, but we grew apart. She is a great mom and now a librarian. I am so proud. She made my teenage years the most incredible adventures of my life. Cheers. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.